Oh, okay. Thanks.
Yeah. So I'll just go ahead and draft that. Really, and then, she usually, so I'll right, and just keep track of the response. Yeah. If I forget.
And then I'll also.
Since I don't really know what it is. Okay. And then,
Obviously, she go back to the charging system.
okay, great.
Good, really good.
Pretty good. Was it a business or pleasure up north?
Okay.
Good. Yeah, good. You just got family up there, right?
We do, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, my mom and dad live up there. I have, siblings.
Take the kids.
So it's mostly just making sure when we have, if we go through the roll call vote when we're supposed to, right?
You were just talking about up north, you're really up north, like just the peaceful, like cleansing of the soul. It's just such an amazing.
We go every year on a family camping trip.
Okay. Are we all set? All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brighton Area Schools Board of Education meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Ms. Ackermite is unfortunately not able to be with us this evening. I'll go ahead and do the roll call. Dr. Krebs? Ms. Reed?
Here.
Mr. Conley? Here. Mr. Trombley?
Yes.
Mr. Storm? Ms. Marks?
Here.
Mr. Myers here. All right, that moves us to the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Reed, supported by Dr. Krebs. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. Moves us to the superintendent report. Dr. Outlaw.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over right away. We're going to continue with our strategic plan updates. And today we have Dr. Mosier and Kim Huber from the curriculum department. They're going to talk about curriculum review process as well as the curriculum warehousing process. So thank you so much.
Hello, thanks for having us. So I'll come over here with you.
Yeah, come
Okay.
closer. So, as Dr. Outlaw said, we were just gonna go over one of the target areas we've been working on specifically in the strategic plan. And the first one in our pathway is curriculum and instruction.
This is our favorite area, of course, which is super coincidental. Our first goal, as you know, was core curriculum. So Brighton will maintain a viable, guaranteed K-12 core curriculum that's aligned with state standards. Some super important parts of this, of course, is that a viable curriculum is one that can be taught within the time frame that it's needed to be taught. Guaranteed means that all students will get this curriculum and learn these things. And then another part that's not in there that is inherent in this work is that it's coherent. So it is aligned vertically between grade levels and then across grade levels to provide consistency for students and what they learn. Our first strategy was that we'll have a district curriculum process, and you can see the example of it here on the right. So we do have a curriculum developmental cycle over here. It starts with evaluating, planning, revising, developing and mapping, implementing and norming, and then monitoring and extending foundational understandings. This is something we've been working on this year with our curriculum coordinators. And actually they are the ones who kind of decided where they fell on this map and then went back and talked to the departments about it and came back to make sure and did some tweaking to the process.
So this was something that was introduced some time ago when I first got here. Just something that maybe wasn't in place in Brighton at the time. So this was developed maybe 5-6 years ago. And then we were on our way, and you all know what happened a few years ago. So we kind of had to reboot and get some feedback. And I think a good part about this is Kim mentioned with the coordinators as well. We're getting a lot of feedback from teachers and even looking at scores and stuff to say, okay, where do we really need to be placed on the map? There are things that would change this. So obviously test scores would be something that would drive a change to say we need to move you to a different priority area, or possibly even a state mandate, something changes in the state standards would cause us to move somebody into a different area.
And the part of that, I like how you pointed out the collaborative process. So it's curriculum coordinators with their teachers, and then also back to the curriculum office to help everyone work together with it.
And one last point would be that we brought this up in the academic committee. We have kind of phased out through 2031. So to kind of keep a progress of work going. Now it can change, of course, like again, if something happens, but basically taking every one of these departments through 2031 to kind of let them know their steps through each of these phases.
You want us to hold questions till the end, Ms. Botcher?
I can answer a question about this, sure.
What would be best for you? Do you want to go through your prepared content and then open for questions, or do you want us to ask as you
Well,
go?
let me go, because I only have 3 slides, if that's okay.
Yep.
Yep, all right, good, because it might coordinate with maybe the next slide.
All right, so under the same goal of core curriculum, our second strategy is that we will have a curriculum warehousing system. Of course, this will increase accessibility for staff. Of course, that includes training, everyone understanding how to use it. Our curriculum resources atlas, it's a web-based mapping and development program platform that helps us manage the process and also increases collaboration. You can see on the right over here, we have a couple examples of what that looks like within that platform. The top example is those are topics in an algebra class, content, a sequence of content, and then also it maps how long we spend time on those things, which is really important when you're providing that across the school year. And the bottom picture is kind of what you can't see it very well, but it's within that process. It talks about what standards this is aligned to, what are our expectations. It will go into even, we could add lesson plans to it later, what kind of assessments we'll be doing. And then these are pictures of a couple of our math groups. Actually, as they're doing the process, they're working within the warehouse so that they're learning how to do it as they go.
And so this is a brand new process here in Brighton. So again, finding curriculum has been sometimes difficult. So this is a way to digitize this, put it up here so it's available for all and accessible for all. And we'll talk a little bit about that, some of those important pieces. So why we picked this? So just to give you a little bit of background, just coming from other counties and other districts, this is probably a process that was implemented maybe 15 years ago, just to have a digital idea of your curriculum and moving away from the binders or moving away from Google Drive. So this keeps it clean and coherent, which is, again, just important as we think about educating all our students and having everybody have access to the same type of curriculum. So the first one just talks about the analytical tools. Another advantage to this is that every assessment, well, one, it can check to make sure every standard is actually hit. So as you go through it, you're marking the standards within each unit. So we know that we're actually hitting every standard. You can align assessments to those specific standards. So then we can identify maybe specific standards. If we look at testing or we look at an area we really want to focus on, we can make sure assessments are aligned to standards. And then we even mentioned about like lesson planning and things like that. So there's a lot of analytical tools that are on the spot there. So it doesn't take time to process. It's just constantly doing that for you. And obviously how many people utilize it and things like that. So that's an important piece for us.
Yeah. So focused conversations, because sometimes we get together and we say, oh, this is what I think's happening, or this time this is focused on what are the pieces that outline a curriculum, like what are our essential questions, what are the outcomes we want students to learn. So it's connecting the content to the instruction to make sure everyone gets the same thing. This does help you because in order to do it, our teachers go together and they work through it. So here's how it ties the expectations. Do we cover all that standard or part of that standard? They can kind of discuss it and make sure everyone's on the same page, knowing how far do we go on that standard right now? And then when do we do the rest of it later? Also, what are the big questions we want students to really think about as they're going through this, learning this content? So it promotes those really good conversations about the content and instruction that we really appreciate.
And that links right to the other one, which we saw a lot when we had our groups come in over the summer. There were several groups here about instruction-based curriculum planning. So what you heard was a lot of teachers going, oh, how do you teach that? That's a good idea. You do this type of project, or, oh, I never thought about assessing that way. So it actually helps them start thinking about what is this actually asking students to do? And then how am I going to teach that? And then collaboration around that process as well.
So immediate access, this was thinking about Atlas and where we're going to warehouse the curriculum was really an important thing. We did think about Google Drive. We used to have binders. And Liz mentions how long ago some people did this. It's during these past years, we did start on this stuff, but kind of changes and all sorts of things kind of stop the movement. So it's a great time for us to keep this movement going forward and this momentum. Teachers can look at it. They know where to look at it. It's not lost in a drive. Someone has access, someone doesn't have access. It's not in a binder. We don't have to keep saying, add this page to your binder. So it's a very clean and efficient way to store curriculum.
That goes right with the next one about the communication. So what's great about it, and I mentioned it a little bit, is that it communicates to everybody, every teacher. Thank you. Every teacher. So if I'm a second grade teacher and I want to see what first grade is doing or where third grade takes it, I can see that. If I'm a ninth grade teacher and teaching algebra and I want to see what the eighth grade was, I can see exactly what students learned. So they have access all the way through. The other part of this, as we get going, but a bonus that a lot of districts use and that we would use is that it becomes a public site. So community parents would have access to it right there. So you would be able to see the curriculum and the scope and sequence and pieces of that.
And then highlights best practice. These are a lot of conversations that we're having within a lot of our groups. We have a lot of groups that asked to come in this summer and do this kind of work in June. We have more groups coming next week. As they're discussing what we want students to learn, what the outcome should be, they're talking about, well, how do we teach that one? But also then how do we assess that to make sure students know? And so we're seeing a lot of growth and understanding, like the depth of knowledge that students need to understand things, and then what we can do to assess them that's authentic. And we've had a lot of great conversations about the best practices around both instruction and assessment.
Told you 3 slides. The last one is just the review of those 2 strategies, just so you can see the 2 strategies under that core curriculum. So that's what I have.
So first, this is fantastic. It's really appreciate you pulling the material together and sharing this with the board. It's wonderful for us to be able to get plugged into and have this level of visibility into the plan for the district and how ultimately the strategic plan ties to students and learning. So thank you for making time to do this. Just as 2 individuals who are very intimately involved in the curriculum, where do you see, as you interact with teachers in our district, where do you see the greatest opportunity for improvement in our curriculum and in the strategic planning that you're doing?
So I think if I just focus on this, which is core curriculum, because so under, I'm probably going to go a little too far, so I apologize. So under the first pathway, there's 4 goals. One is the core curriculum, instruction, assessment, intervention, and professional learning. So which is all, well, 3 of us. That's your department. But if I just stick with core curriculum, honestly, it's what we're doing, right? So there wasn't a housed space. There wasn't maybe a clear coherence of articulated curriculum, so there was no guarantee, like Kim talked about this guaranteed viable curriculum. It's sometimes hard to find. So we're really working hard to say, no, it shouldn't be hard to find. Here it is. And it doesn't matter if you have this teacher or this teacher or this teacher, it's here. And this is what we teach our students. So I would say, honestly, like that is the big work. I think, so having a place where that is and available, I do think that is the big work. I think one thing that we do through this process now with teachers is a lot of understanding, going back to the standards and seeing what you should actually be teaching. Because over time, what happens, we all do it. We see something really neat. We're like, oh my gosh, that's a great thing. And let's do it. But what is that replacing, right? So I think it's just having, honestly, it's the time and value of having those conversations and bringing people back together for that, where I see the most impact in what we've been trying to provide. I'm not sure that that's a clean answer, but that's probably the best answer.
And maybe just one quick follow-up.
Sure.
I've had a dialogue with multiple board members throughout this year regarding what avenues of opportunity exist within our curriculum here in Brighton area schools to build flexibility in to our curriculum. And what I mean by that, I'll explain quickly. When I was in high school many decades ago, I took auto tech for multiple years. So I actually went in a formal structured environment to learn how to work on vehicles.
Yeah.
And I also was in advanced calculus, and I loved both classes the same.
Yeah.
I really like sitting in biology and taking notes all day long on, cell structures and genes and all that stuff. for students that are in Brighton area schools, as they get into high school, or I should say just throughout their learning experience, K through 12, students naturally gravitate to certain areas of interest, and our collective responsibility, parents included, is to challenge children to learn about things that they may not necessarily have a big passion, just to get them exposure. In the context of our strategic plan and in the context of the curriculum,
Yeah.
my question is, if Andy's in middle school and realizes that he likes math a lot more than he likes science, is there any opportunity within our curriculum to create more of a focused concentration in a particular area like math versus science, where I took, instead of taking a full year of biology,
Yeah.
I could take 6 weeks of biology, 6 weeks of chemistry, 6 weeks of physics, but 18 weeks of algebra?
So the short answer is there's probably a way, because I think there's always a way. But let me add the big but to that. So the first and foremost is in Michigan, we're defined by the Michigan Merit Curriculum. So that's a requirement in order for graduation. So there are 18 credits out there that every student has to take. And I think we offer 24. So just to kind of give you an idea. So are there ways? Sure. So like in career and tech ed, like I came from a career and tech ed world. And so what we did is we did a lot of cross walking of curriculum standards. So I could integrate some of those standards into some of the courses. The only thing is you always have to cover enough standards so you can grant credit to count as something else. So yes, you could create some integration of courses, which we talk a little bit about now. An easy part, and I know this isn't exactly where you're going, but I want to give you the example, is for instance, there's K-12 literacy Michigan academic standards, and they are not supposed to be just taught in English. So for instance, the idea of writing wasn't supposed to be just in English. If you actually look at the Michigan academic standards, those are supposed to be taught in social studies, in science, in all these areas where writing happens. So we've had conversations as the curriculum groups are coming, how can you integrate other disciplines into what you're doing? So I know it's not specific to how that happens. So to say, hey, I don't want to do any more math or any more science, that would be hard because those standards still have to be covered somewhere under the law. But it doesn't mean you couldn't create more integration somewhere. Does that help?
I have a question. So this is great. Thank you. I'm very excited to see this when it's done.
Me too.
So I have a couple questions related mostly to timing, because this is obviously a very large undertaking to do this when you're looking at K through 12. So from a completion standpoint, or when it will be available for families to access, when do you anticipate that being the case? And then secondarily, in the interim, how are families to find this information?
So I think for this I don't know. I would have to get more information on, is just like how quickly we can turn around. So what courses I can unlock to start giving public access to. So I would say as soon as we finish courses, if they allow us to start, we can say, okay, these are the courses we want public access to now because they're done. Otherwise, you're just seeing a shell of something that
It's
isn't
not very
ours.
informative.
So I don't
Yeah.
want that to be out there, but if we can do that, then that would probably be immediate, as soon as I figure out how to do it. I'm learning as well. As for the other things, I would say what happens right now is where parents go is back to the building, back to teachers specifically and asking for that.
Okay.
So that's what we're trying to move away from
Right.
and say, hey, here's a central spot that we can tell you right now, this is what all students should be getting.
Right. So when you go to our K through 12 website,
it
and
would
you
be
click
there.
on K
And,
through 4 ELA, you
Absolutely.
see the whole continuum.
Yes,
for,
in
yeah.
fact, it would, if you look at some people who, there's a lot of schools that use Atlas. It's not
Yeah.
new. Oakland schools, Wayne Reese, a lot of these people use it. You would honestly just click it, you click on your area and you can have access. to
Our
all
former
of it.
district that I
Yeah.
came from used it. So I'm
Yeah.
very familiar with
Yeah,
it. I
so-
think it's great when it's up there and
It
ready.
is.
It will be fantastic.
It will
And I
be.
think the families will be thrilled.
I would say we are moving, and again, I know you're not asking this, and again, I'm probably giving too much, but this is just what I do. I love this work, but we are we have some math going, we have some ELA going, we have K8 ELA looking at this year. So it is starting to move faster. It was a little slow to get started, but we are starting to move a little faster through some of this. So I predict we could probably even see stuff this year if we can start opening up some of those areas.
Great.
That would be a goal.
Great.
I would like to
Thank
say
you.
too that really it's the systems that make a big difference for this. We've seen this siloed in lots of places for lots of years, lots of transitions, but really the systems that are being put in place now will be moving forward and really help guide the work, no matter who's here.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm not.
Great framework that you've put together.
Well, thank you.
I can't wait to see the end result once we finish filling in all those shells. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
I'll say what I really like is the idea of doing the whole trajectory, seeing what they've done before and what they've done after.
Yeah.
Because I know that that's really important for the teachers to know that they don't have to cover this topic. The
Right.
standard has already been addressed. Because my experience is they tend to go back and keep redoing
Ours
things
too.
over and over again. But if it's, no, it's covered in, fourth grade, fifth grade, teachers don't need to do that. In
Yeah.
addition, with the different buildings, now you're building that
Yes.
communication between them. So I think that's really powerful. So thank you.
And our teachers are seeing that, like they're recognizing that. And so that's the big work in this, watching teachers create those, right? Like I can tell them, like, you don't need to teach this. I can tell them that, but until they actually see it and they're like, wait, this really is, it's learning, right? They have to learn too and say, okay, that was really taught somewhere. So it is it's fun and it's good work.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you to Dr. Mosier, to Ms. Hubert, and all the teachers that have been working on this. This is an ongoing process. Curriculum is never completed because once you are done, you're constantly revising. It's always a moving train, and they're doing a wonderful job. And just want to say thanks to everybody for their work on that. I have just a brief introduction. At our last meeting, the board voted to approve Chelsea Boyd as the new Spencer principal, and I thought it'd be nice for you all to put a name with a face. So I'm wondering if Chelsea could come forward and just introduce yourself to the board.
Hello. I'll talk louder since we clearly are in the middle of some sort of storm out here. I'm Chelsea Boyd. I appreciate your patience with me not being here the last time we were in Disney World with my two sons and my husband and my mother. So thank you for the opportunity. I'm super excited. It's been, I've been back since the new month. So I've been making lots of lists and, learning all the things and really getting to know some of our families and seeing them at Costco. It really has been great. So it just feels like this is where I'm supposed to be. I sad to leave our curriculum work up in that office, but I know whoever is my replacement will do a great job and love working with them as well. So so I just wanted to say a few things and so you can see who I am. So nice to meet all of you.
Welcome.
Thank you
very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chelsea. Chelsea's coming from, she was our tiered intervention specialist for the district, and it's a huge job. It is a vacant position right now that we're looking to try to find somebody to fill. She did absolutely amazing work in that role. It's hard to explain. Everybody on the inside knows how difficult it was, and she did it, made it a very challenging job look easy, and just left big shoes to fill on that, which has really prepped her for really excelling at Spencer. We know she's going to do a wonderful job, and it's going to be a great future at Spencer. So pick up the torch and run with it. So, all right. Okay. Thank you, Chelsea. And the final thing I have on here, I'm going to pass things over to Mr. Conley to talk about JROTC.
Thank you, Dr. Alba. I've been kind of working away at this. I'm going to pass these down. So you can share the chat. I don't have a ton of copies. But we've got some good information. The county in September, will be putting up a vote in front of their board that will potentially award dollars to Brighton Schools to help a startup program and a startup launch, and that the amount that's put on their agenda will be $150,000, which is basically, I think, Dr. Mosier, you can tell me, Dr. Mosier, Liz, I'm back. Are you, our startup money, when we looked at it with the county, it was about 150, 200 roughly. That's good. It'll be okay. All right, but the idea is that the county has got that on their budget to go our direction, and if it's voted through, and there's a lot of support for it, so I believe it'll have a high level of votes for it. And that would be in September, we'd find that out. Last week, the Navy had called back and said that they will have open seats for a district-sponsored program, not a Navy-funded program, but a program that we would fund, we would use this ARPA funds along with our own general fund expenditure to fund it. And I was able to find gentleman from the Navy actually referred me to the Belleville School District, and I handed out part of it from Belleville. And here's another section. I'll send these out. Is there two there? And send the other ones now. Belleville started in 2019, and they were self-funded in 2019. And this year they were awarded fully funded programming. And the opportunity that they had, I spoke to their principal today, and she's going to connect us with the people in charge. The person who actually started it, his picture's on the front page here. He started in 2019. And if you look at what he was able to do, it's kind of like, it's almost unbelievable. So the Belleville school system just started. So over a 3-year program, they were ranked #1 out of 67 schools in a 10-state area. He did a phenomenal job. Tremendous work, obviously, to bring a school from start to leading the pack. And I think Brighton area schools, and what the representative from the Navy said, is they're a similar sized district to ours. And he believed that Brighton area schools could achieve the level similar and be funded in a short amount of time. So basically they started out in 19 and then went through COVID. And then they were funded for this calendar year going forward, funded by the Navy. So there's some good information in there about what they've done and where they started. What really hard for me is that it fits into the things that we've all talked about. You know, promotes patriotism, informed and responsible citizens on page 2 of the one that has the tiger on the front. And it talks about respect, for authority, develops leadership and potential, and high school completion, and it fits right in line with that. So it's moving forward, and we officially have that application in with the county. Once they approve that, then we can come back and discuss it further. And the Navy said that an official document would be given to us that would approve us to go forward. I believe it was December or January this year coming. So it would be a 2024-25 program. And that's what I have on that. And let me see if there's anything else. Does anybody have any questions?
So hypothetically, if the Navy comes back at the beginning of the year
Yes.
and they approve Brighton area schools, what's the next step then?
Then we.
Doctor, I'm asking Dr. Outlaw.
Sure. I think Dr. Mosier might be able to help me out here with this, but there would need to be, obviously, would have to be an approved course on our course selections guide. There's a process that goes with that. So I think if you're looking at a January approval, I think it would be in the best interest of the district to have at least approved by the Board of Education prior to that time, so that if approved, that it could be a quick turnaround, so that it could be on the course selection guide for the students. So I would not wait until you get approved and then come through a 2-3 month process, because then the students will miss out on the chance to potentially sign up for the course.
Good.
That'd be my recommendation.
Okay. Sounds good. So, thank you.
I have some questions then about the planning. I mean, if we're looking at putting this on the course selection sheet for this coming spring, are we thinking about, where we would house these classes? Do we have space for them? Do we have space for the program to expand? Have we started planning out what that would look like? Because I know when we originally talked about this, that was one of the concerns. Did we have space to dedicate to this?
So what I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I feel like we have an abundance of space to work with. I would say we could figure out space. A lot of this, some of this is classroom. We have classrooms. Some of this is drill. We have places where students can do drill. Some of this needs to be outdoor drill space. We have plenty of outdoor space. So I think space would probably be the easiest part of it. I think some of the bigger challenges would be some of the curriculum pieces. I don't know what the nuances are between Navy versus Army, and we had applications into multiple service. So those would be questions that I don't know the answer to, whether approval of an Army or a Navy, if those vary dramatically. So I would say the curriculum items are some question marks that need to be filled in. But we could figure out space. The funding piece and the staffing requirements, I think those are some things that would need to be vetted out. Because I know there's classroom teachers, I think there's multiple staff members that are associated with it. So there's a lot of question marks. So we can work on some of that stuff, but these are.
Dr. Mosier has knowledge on the front, what it takes and what it takes for the staffing that's required. And we have certainly in my belief and put my boots on the ground in our facilities, we have a wonderful opportunity for facilities, including our indoor area that we just built, the complex, which would be very valuable to this program as well as Howells potentially at different times, depending on the time of year that they're operating in. The success rate of Howells program is now a decade, I think. Is that Chris? 10 years, give or take. It's close. And they're doing very well. They're at a fully funded position with the Air Force. And the like the Marine Corps program for us, they basically, you'd have to get in line and wait till someone canceled and you might get one. That's what I was told. And it's like, well, could be 5 years from now. So how do you plan around that, not knowing anything? The Navy and the Army program, we haven't heard back, I don't believe, correct, from the Army. The Army, they're going through a lot of changes as well, part of their programs and different things that they're all doing. But the Navy seems to be the best to work with, and they've been real good when they're in our school as well. And I think that, like I said, we'll lean towards that, and it'll be up to the board. But this is our opportunity at this time from the commitment side from the armed services would be from the Navy. Any other questions?
I just have, I don't know if this is for you, Mr. Conley, or maybe Dr. Mosier. Going back to the curriculum and exchange, since this is typically more than a 1 hour, right? It's usually a 2 hour block, and having students be able to fit that in their schedule. Are there some of the Michigan merit that is waived by this, like maybe gym requirement if you have to do drilling or I'm just wondering if we would know that ahead of time, because that would play into how students would plan their schedules too.
So I think that would be, so yes, there's always, first of all, there's personal curriculum. So there are things that can be waived if you take additional core courses, just so you know, that's how that usually works unless IDPs are a little bit different. In regards to integrating, there's always that. I would have to read through the stuff again. Yeah, sometimes you can do that. So sometimes Board of Eds give approval and say, hey, if you take, for instance, if you're a varsity athlete, you can waive your PE. That is under, that could be brought as an option. I think, again, like with anything else, if we offer it one way, we're just going to have a bigger discussion about then who,
Okay.
that's all you're going to do is you're just going to start opening doors. You got to figure out where you want to land on that.
Right, so thus the planning needing to be ahead of time because it won't be turned over in time for the spring. The students need to know what they can exchange or not. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Is what I've learned is there's several of the offerings that would qualify because these are it'll be a certified teacher teaching it. And there's several areas in there that would take care of other areas that they could kind of get credit for. The other thing is when I went to Brighton High, we had a 0 hour, and the 0 hour were for 2 hour blocks. We'd come in, and if you were really excited about something, you wanted to do it, you got yourself moving and came in. And so 01 for me was a welding block. I took a 2 hour welding course. And then later in the day, I had a 2 hour auto class. For me, I had Dan Stremick and Frank Buckler. These guys were experts in their field, just expert. And fortunately for me, when we tested in the auditorium for certification tested, I left fully certified at 17. Gave me a nice start. And I look back at that time very fondly as far as the amount of material. It was hard to do. It wasn't easy to come in 0 hour. And then, but you did it. And so I would just think about that flexibility and look at the opportunity that we could generate. And then it's up to the students to decide, and parents and transportation and different things that come into this, because this would be a countywide offering. So this would go out through all school systems. So all 5 of our school systems could partake in this as long as they get here, get the classes in, and move back to their school for the rest of their day. So I think it's a great opportunity. And if we can make it where it works for kind of the community, and obviously we're focused on Brighton, but we open it up to the community, then we could see the fill. And I think what I was, actually, I know what I was told, 100 person, 100 people in the class, 2 years straight, then you're considered for the paid for program, and you're automatically enrolled in that. Now, like currently, if we do accept the program and pay for and self-fund it, then they're watching and you turn in your stats, then you'll automatically enroll for the paid for program after 2 years. So, and that's how it went. And I think that this, the Belleville is a perfect one. We could kind of parallel just a little bit and see how they've done it. And the principal said that whatever we needed, she'd be open to talk to us about. Baseline's done, which is helpful.
So just a couple follow-up questions. Well, thank you for providing this information, Mr. Conley. Speaking of Belleville, and obviously, Gunny Sergeant Barr has done a tremendous job in starting and growing that program. Do you know if their program is a 0 hour, or is it part of?
Them right now, I've asked to, we're gonna be invited to go down and visit. And so that's in motion right now. And this word just got to me last week about the program being there. And so we'll find out to see how they've structured it within their, class and all these required classes that the students have. I'm looking down there, kind of watching those two. We got to figure out, because they're going to have to figure out if it's a balance out of it.
Well, and I would, and do you know if the Belleville program was funded by the government, or was it a self-funded?
100% self-funded when they started.
Okay.
Yeah, self-funded.
Because I think that's important. Because when I was reading the article, it said the Navy policy is for groups of over 80. This is the article you gave us. There should be at least 2 instructors, but he is doing it alone. That's referring to the gunny sergeant.
Correct.
He said that's for the Navy to decide. So I don't know. I mean, so I didn't know if that suggested that it was funded by the Navy and then they could decide how many instructors there were, or if it was self-funded, if we're the ones that make that decision. When you meet with them, that's certainly something I would be interested in getting details.
Because maybe you can come.
Well, sure.
And again, and Dr. Mosier and stuff, the same. The thing about it, what I found really interesting is that he did run it on his own. So being self-funded, appears he had some flexibility and didn't have to have they probably maybe didn't fund the second teacher, is but I can't guess that. You can only ask.
Yeah.
When we get there. And then, so they got the program up to speed, and then they qualified for a funded program. And then this gunny sergeant took it to the number 1. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
And but that's kind of things we do out here too. We have, we get into it, we get serious about it. I look forward to seeing the same type of opportunity. And I think that's why we were referred to talk to them. So, but like I said, pretty positive about it. I think it creates some great opportunities for our students in our district. Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Conley.
If I could just do a quick shout out, our mechanics for our buses, they just received they had their annual state review. And they had a near perfect score, which is very challenging to do. I think it's just one of those unsung hero type people in the district. Last year, we honored them as the extraordinary Blackhawks of the month, or Bulldogs of the month, sorry, previous district, Bulldogs of the month. And they've just done a wonderful job. Great team over there. I just want to give them a little shout out, just say thank you again for all their work keeping our kids and staff safe. So
That's great news.
I can comment on that a little bit. Being the technicians doing that job is the buses age and you have to maintain them. And we have our roads are really tough on them, be it the salt and be it the dirt roads and everything else. It does take a serious effort to maintain these buses. And what's our bus age right now? Do you know what they are? There's some that are 15 years old, I'm sure.
we're getting to be a much younger
Better.
fleet.
Yeah,
There's
we're
been a lot of
better.
investment by the board, so we're pretty young these days.
So that's a good thing. But still, it's a tough job, and I, as a technician, I appreciate the hard work they do. And you run down the road, you don't see them on records all the time, and even today's times, you don't know if it's a load of fuel, you don't know what it is, right? What would cause it, but it's appreciated from my end, and I know the rest of the board appreciates our students getting to school as well. As a mechanic, I got it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. That concludes the superintendent report portion of our agenda and moves us to the call to the public. At this time, we would invite anyone who would like to address the board the opportunity to do so. You are limited to 3 minutes in your comments. Ms. Marks will be keeping track of time. When you have 30 seconds left in your comments, she will give you a yellow card indicating that you have 30 seconds left. When your 3 minutes is up, she will indicate with the red card that the time is up. We ask anyone that would like to address the board to fill out a card, place it in the box there to the left of Ms. Huber, and we will read the names. And it looks like as of right now, we only have one card. Kay Pinchin?
With everything going on in our community surrounding, I felt the need to speak. My name is Kay Pinchin. I am a Brighton Township resident. I have been a PTO volunteer for 10 years, and I am now sitting in my third PTO board position. This year, I will have 3 children and 2 grandchildren throughout these district buildings. My first mission in volunteering is to be involved in these young lives and show them what it means to be a participant in building a strong and successful community. My second mission is to ensure that this place is getting better for all students now and for those to come in the future. That is the ultimate goal in life after all, right? To leave the world a better place for those that come after us. Some of my lifestyle preferences were realized in middle school. I was surrounded by peers and family that loved and supported all of who I was. I was not stuck in a community fueled by judgment or cliques. My classmates and I never felt the need to hide who we were among one another. Coming out and standing in our truth was easy for most. For those that it wasn't, we learned that it was due to lack of unconditional love, trust, and support in their homes. We provided a safe space for each other to be true to ourselves. I want the same for this generation and every future generation to come through this community to have the same sense of love and acceptance that I did growing up. Unfortunately, in these 10 years, I have watched families arrive with excitement for all that Brighton has to offer, but then quickly leave due to the lack of acceptance to their family's differences in abilities, race, culture, religion, or sexuality. It breaks my heart to still hear others considering leaving. It is also disheartening to hear the words, "We just don't have the funding for certain levels of disability services," and to see a special education employee being pulled between multiple buildings. Yet millions are continuing to be spent in sports in hopes of producing another star athlete in the future. In a community that dedicates an entire week to being kind, we still have students who are hiding in the shadows from their bullies, and we must work together to do better for all of them. Please consider what a shame it is that any student could lack their full potential of greatness because they're masking their own truths out of fear of disappointing their families or peers. Those masked young students, following the set of expectations pushed on them instead of being encouraged to follow their heart, dreams, and sharing love and acceptance to those that need it along their path. All children deserve to be treated with love and kindness, to be provided with a space that is safe to explore all of the possibilities that the world ahead of them holds. It is the responsibility of everyone in this room and throughout this district to ensure that for all of these students. I leave you with a quote, likely heard by some of our elders in our lives. God don't like ugly. Judgment is ugly. It is not our job to judge anyone, and judgment has no place here. Acceptance and love will always win. And please let us do better moving forward.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else who would like to address the board? All right, that closes the call to the public portion of our agenda and moves us into the next item, the closed session.
I move that this board go into closed session pursuant to consult with the district's attorney pursuant to MCL 15.268E of the Open Meetings Act.
All right, we have a motion to go into closed session by Ms. Marks, support by Mr. Trombley. We will need a roll call vote for this motion. Ms. Marks?
Mr. Conley? Aye. Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Trombley? Yep. Dr. Krebs?
Yes.
Mr. Storm?
Yes.
Ms. Marks? Yes.
Okay, that passes 7-0. So we will now go into closed session. You're welcome to stay in this room. We will be actually convening in a different room. After we come back out of closed session, we do have additional items on our business agenda to attend to, and we will reconvene at that point.
Just a reminder that this is on camera. It doesn't turn off until we come. Letting you know.
Is what I was gonna do.
Exactly, right?
Like there are some things that they can help us in this. But I think still a lot would be like additional, like,
You know, we love that work.
yeah, I'm sure.
Good to see you.
Hey, Charles.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Hi, Chelsea. Nice to meet you. Thanks.
We'll watch it, see if they sing or dancing. Don't say phone.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Watch
a
these.
lively thing of us just sitting in here staring at the wall.
Yeah.
I saw that they were working on the door downstairs. Oh.
Yeah.
This is awful. But I'm doing it. Seriously, the air conditioning. Did you see what they did on my phone? They didn't take out the old one. They put a new window on, so we have the old one in the window. Instead of replacing that one, they broke out a new window and put it down. So now I have two in there. One.
Because you're gonna be super cool.
No, well, that's what I said, we freezing too up. It worked. I don't know. It was sitting in there. It was sitting in the room.
it wasn't working, so I had to
Oh, well, maybe he said it didn't work. I don't know. If he said it didn't work, then trust him, but I thought it worked.
Yeah, that was.
Yes.
Next.
All my vision. Is that next time? So just waiting.
I was like, why didn't you just take out the whole one?
Seemed like it'd been easy.
You think, instead of cutting out a window or taking out a whole lot. Good job, just a little bit. Oh, yeah. I mean, the unit almost looks the same. There's like,
Maybe it was.
Foam or something.
Wasn't cooling enough.
That's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if that's what it was.
Too.
No.
No. Yeah.
It was just funny, I walked in there, I'm like.
That's kind of what it was. They thought it was too small.
You're so funny.
That's the reason I think they put it in.
So I'm trying to think for them. I'm trying to think for them.
I mean, the cheerleader, we took out, that's big room. The practice
Yes.
cheerleading, we put it right at, it was right back in the same hole.
We have two. Yeah.
That's big room.
I have an extra one.
Curious to see if that one.
I've done it, like, again, I could be wrong, but I would go over, plug it in and turn it down to 68, let it go. Maybe, I'm not down there all the time.
So
Somebody-
that was
somebody,
that night was on this morning, and Thursday, the guys are going to take off and we should Friday.
There you go.
Oh, look at.
They got to turn the main power out, because if you don't turn the main breaker out, then the power goes to your house and it will go from the breaker. Turn the main breaker out, and plug the generator into the trip unit up. Drive up, it'll feed your house.
Turn on
Yeah.
Turn on the main power.
The generator.
Ours isn't it? How big is it?
I got 35.
But we did the thing, like, it keeps my well running, it'll keep a lot of stuff running, which, for me, it's like,
Water, take showers.
that's the thing, I just want water.
I mean, you just leave all the lights out, and you turn the lights on that you're using.
All right, you don't need them all.
Never.
I mean-
Yeah, I ever had one hot, like, keep it from freezing. Sure.
I don't need to do that, yeah.
So where do you keep the generator?
Well, mine's outside.
See, mine's now. But you.
So now I'm super excited, I'm like, this will be, if we don't even lose power, like, I can actually tell you, like, it's 2004, I think we've lost it like 5 times, like, we just don't lose power, so it just doesn't matter. My mom.
Not as bad as like you go up 3 more streets over and then you're over the
Where's
street.
that? Oh, yeah, Kendall's over there.
Yeah.
Almost thought about like, one of those school house generators, generator.
Well, that's what it probably, now that I can do this, I'm like, forget it. The whole house one.
That's for the toilet for 8 months, because it came with a new handle. Full handle's like $18 per hour. I mean, if you see toilet.
Probably for cheaper than the 4 handles.
Yeah, it was like $300, but you gotta fix it. You can usually find generators on marketplace.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 3,500. Probably jinx myself. Because really, it was only really one time where it was real bad.
This past time, because it was awful.
No, it was in the summer, probably about 2 summers ago. We had family from out of town, so we had probably 6, 7 other people. We came back from Bishop, out there. So we took the kids over there and come back. Grilling, and suddenly starts raining. Finish up. Just as I finished. But stayed the first night. Yeah. Hotel in the next 2 days.
Well, we have had really customers who live us grill, that's something I did. So now we're back to grilling, because we have a rec pack, so that's electric. So we're cooking with that, which is awful. Now we can serve it. Propane.
Yes, I should just go back and just give it to the see if
On the different.
just 3 on.
So you need to know the generators, we call it. Probably like a lesser generator, this is probably like 4, because it's 3,500. So it's only 3 prawns. That's it. I got a standing desk for my treadmill because I sit on my ass when I'm for work as a lawyer. I really successfully used it for like 9 minutes.
There you go.
As I'm sitting here like, I should have started using it. You guys get to get up and move around.
I've seen people trying to work on a treadmill before, I'm like,
I can't, I'm having a hard time with like typing and doing it, but I think in one of my million meetings, like I could use it during some of the meetings, so I have to go to.
yeah, like if you're doing Zoom meetings and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think I can walk and talk.
Oh, yeah. I can do emails, I can spreadsheets, I'm like, okay.
Chelsea, our new principal,
Mhm.
she just got on the stand-up desk.
Yeah,
It's pretty nice.
I have a stand-up desk, I just don't stand up, I almost never stand up at it, but this is like goes across your treadmill, so, oh yeah, I'm trying, we'll see. I can't run a spreadsheet and walk at the same time, 100% that'll, it's a fail. I tried. I mean, maybe once you get used to it, you get more coordinated with it. It's not been a success so far.
It's not. Always not.
There it is, I mean, you just always gotta try to be more active so you can hang around for our kids and be annoying to them for many years to come, right?
There you go.
And we shout out to our bus mechanics. He had a moment, they went back. He came to stay the bus inspector. It was much of a razor something. Yeah, company vehicle driver.
What?
He's driving around and stuff.
You're first.
They won't let them come here because they know it's he was like, he had his black, I thought boots come up out here, and his pants got them boots.
We did.
Yeah. It's like everything got a book.
How long was he here?
4 days. After all the buses, and Jim got like, I think he got like three yellow tags. And we fixed them for they were like a band around them for work. Oh, he was here, Johnny was here. 5 years? It's good.
Seven.
He hired a new guy, see,
7.
they just. They hired a auto bus driver. He used to work on bus motors. He didn't work on buses, but he worked on 20 motors. You know, the engines.
That's good.
The rest of the stuff.
I can eat that oil and water. They got these. We were, I was a kid. We were living in the city. We load up, right? We're driving down I-75. All of a sudden, smoke or something starts coming back up all over. Yeah, it's, we all, three kids. And we love it. So he starts taking stuff out of there. Yeah, it's good on Saturday. I know I got a roll of white tape. I think maybe it was the radiator. Takes away that white tape. Takes it up. Alright, great stuff. I can throw.
Somebody would just complain that. All this on, like, it's a bully night for my dad, I'm just like, I'm frustrated. And, okay, whatever, I'm all just trying to go. It's kind of like, well, I said, well, if they're saying, hey, please have more, please, so we're not, there's actually Margaret, and you know, you can call it that. So I get, to the American, so they help me do that.
it's just, it's like, wow, so, here we are pushing the car across the highway, the traffic for the, for the guys service. There's Kmart.
Kmart car dealer. Kmart car dealer.
That's like
I thought maybe you were gonna say they have Kmart Parkland, so they're working on it.
Yeah, I wish.
Little like special, man.
Well, that's what I was thinking, you know, like, you want to Kmart for everything back then. You need something, you get Kmart. You get your tires there, you get anything. It's the board winter. It's an option. So we've done like 12 minutes. It could be a while.
I'm pretty sure there's reading. I don't know that for sure, I'm speculating. Because that's usually, not usually have the word. I don't want to lose me back.
It should be really bad around the phone if you give up time.
Well, you know, players, they work with on others.
Good night, you don't get a call.
I feel like our schools, structurally, everything's been really good, but we've had very people outages, very people outages, like, for how many kids are served, and how big the district is.
Yeah, not down the way.
I mean, 150,000.
Stratton's the biggest one. Stratton's in there, they have to lose power.
Doesn't,
The rest of the school is all pretty good.
that's what you're saying, how do you have
They just get whacked all the time.
That's still pretty rural over there.
That's what you do.
Trees, lots of trees.
It's surrounded-
I'll never forget.
Surrounded by a neighborhood.
Yeah.
North, you got
Remember, yeah, it was like 2 summers ago, and it's summer camp going.
Yeah. Houses on the
West.
the west on the north side.
What are you doing?
West street.
It looked like strollways going on, but those power lines are much trees and all that.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
They trim a lot in Milwaukee, which is why we don't have a long time there.
That's good.
Because 2 years ago, we had hard for like 7 days. So. It wasn't great.
You live that one? One was just right about there, just across from Oak Point, where you get Oak Point.
Yeah. I live in the original schoolhouse in Brighton. It's right over there. But when I was young, this was
Yeah.
so I was taught both sides.
This was middle school now.
And then they built Milwaukee. They built Milwaukee, and then they, I was around for 2 years after I was done. Of course.
Stratton was the principal. You can sell money back in your regress. You only did it once, you can do that.
I can, I mean, it was. Actually, Jack Lees was my, his daughter's the same grade as me. And he was the, custodian. At all the school times there. It's a long way.
Yeah. Still going.
Yes. Always been very nice.
Oh,
Yeah, so I'm thinking of this case where they came up with the, and he's not necessarily doing this, he's doing something. He could look at- maybe get it down to that. We can do this price now. No, we can't do this price now. Sure, we're not very president. It's gonna need to get something that.
I read the Federal Register every morning, and I still look that up too.
Boy, Ms. Nichols is in it for the long haul tonight.
We don't even factor it
No,
in.
but just in case.
I agree, absolutely.
So,
I said you're in it for the long haul tonight.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we are back in open session and moving to the next item on our agenda, the for action portion. Item A, regular meeting minutes of July 10, 2023. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Moved by Dr. Krebs. Support by Ms. Reed. Any discussion? Will those in favor signify by aye? Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. Moves us to item B, the special meeting minutes of July 24, 2023. Do we have a motion to approve the special meeting minutes as presented? Moved by Dr. Krebs. Support by Ms. Reed. Any discussion?
Just one quick question. As it relates to the item that was discussed at the last special meeting that I exchanged correspondence with you and Dr. Outlaw about with regards to soliciting competitive bids on the $1+ million procurement. I was just wondering, do we ever reference those particular items in minutes? I was looking for that in the meeting minutes when I got the email packet. And I was just wondering, what the standard district kind of process is as it relates to something of substance. We were asked to approve was it 1.7, I think? What was it total? Remember?
I thought it was a million.
It was more over $1 million. And I was just, to me, it's a material reference to the meeting minutes. Not looking to, get into a heated debate over this, but just was curious. Is that something that we would feel is of substance that should be in the minutes to capture the reason this particular motion to table security investments items? It was specifically because the request to approve was being made in the absence of soliciting competitive bids for something that was over $1 million. Some form of reference to that.
It says board discussion and questions were raised on bid processing and revising the scope. Administration will bring this item back. So, questions were raised regarding the bid processing.
Request to approve solicitation over $1 million that did not have competitive bids.
Well, I don't know that
I don't know that that's accurate.
that's accurate, right? I think that,
I've already responded a little bit to that, but whatever you guys want to put in.
No, feel free.
But
Feel free.
I don't think that would be inaccurate.
right, well, and I guess that's the point. Well,
I
to
think
answer
what's
your
written here
question.
is accurate.
So what's that?
I think what's here is accurate, that there were questions raised about the bid process
And why do you feel it was not accurate, Dr. Alla? What I just articulated, why do you feel it's not accurate?
That it was not competitively bid.
Yes.
I shared information about how all of the technology bids went through the TIPS process, which is all competitively bid. It's a bidding agency. So I shared that information. You can laugh about it, but I shared that with the board, checked with legal counsel. That is absolutely permitted. And one of the items that's on here that's going to be brought forward by the bond committee also went through the TIPS program, which is a bidding service. So
Yeah, that answers the question. I mean, there isn't,
That's why I brought it up. So
Yeah,
I think, so now
okay.
it's in the public record.
Okay.
And- Okay, if that's the administration's position.
this is the question about whether the minutes are accurate or not. That's what's on the table. So it's not a question about what the administration's position is, what my position is, what Mr. Conley's position is. It's, do you agree that these are accurate minutes? If not.
I don't.
Okay, well then, are you,
Because of what I stated, Roger. So
Okay.
I feel we spent as a board a meaningful amount of time discussing the fact that we as a district did not solicit. We actually talked about the TIPS bid process in that meeting. Don't disagree with that at all. But we as a district, as a board, I should say, as a board, through our discussion, and it was mutual discussion, we came to the conclusion with Scott here and had dialogue that we had not, as a district, solicited competitive bids, and we actually had the company, one of the awardees was sitting in the audience, waiting for us to approve and grant them a $400,000 plus contract. So that's my
Okay.
position. Again, I'm open to input from the rest of the board.
Offer some thoughts on this. You know, I recognize that our minutes tend to be very minimalistic. And to a certain extent, that can raise frustration when we spend an extraordinary amount of time diving into detail on a subject and the minutes don't reflect the same level of detail that we discussed here at the meeting. One of the reasons that I think the approach that we take in these minutes is appropriate, despite that lack of detail, is that I think we could spend an awful lot of time at the beginning of every meeting arguing with each other over which words accurately captured the different objections and discussion points that we each made at the table. And that would not serve the board or the public going forward. We do have recorded meetings, so the public can absolutely see exactly what we discussed. If there's ever any question that anybody has about who raised what issue and what the response from the administration was or otherwise. So there's certainly still a record and transparency to the public. The substance of what it was we were asked to consider is always covered in the board package, which is again available to the public and easily referenced in conjunction with the meeting minutes if somebody has a question about what's there. It's not all in the same place, but it's certainly still available to the public. And I think this approach that we take and have taken for a while in the minutes themselves just helps reduce the amount of discussion here at the board table about the words.
And I'm not disagreeing with anything you've said. I think it's the exception, not the norm, right? Every meeting, you're asked as a board to approve the meeting minutes.
Yes.
And then the president of the board asks if there's any discussion related to those minutes. I would suggest, not having gone back and watched all the tapes, but 9 out of 10 times, we approve the minutes and we move on with the rest of the agenda. There are certain extenuating circumstances where a member of the board may have something they want to discuss related to those minutes. That's why that's a part of our normal meeting process. So I don't feel like every meeting we have, we get into these deep discussions about the nuances of the meeting minutes. Thankfully, it's part of the process where when we ask for input on the meeting minutes, we all have the opportunity, like I did tonight, to bring a concern forward. And I maintain that my concern is well-founded, that we were, as a board, asked to approve an expenditure that exceeded $1 million. Actually, we're called into a special meeting to approve expenditure that exceeded $1 million. And as a district, we hadn't solicited competitive bids for that expenditure. If any of us in our personal lives at home were looking to have $1 million expenditure in our personal life, spend $1 million on a home, an improvement, a property, a business, I promise you, we would all solicit competitive bids before cutting a check for $1 million.
Of course,
And
'cause we-
everybody in the public would do the same.
Of course, because we don't have access to the TIPS program.
Okay.
So we don't have that same opportunity. And what we would do in our personal lives without that access is vastly different than the best practices in the context of government purchasing.
Okay.
So,
Well, I
Well-
brought up my concern.
yeah, absolutely. All right. Any further?
Well, and again, by our policies, the board speaks through its minutes. So, if you want to bring something up in Mr. Storm, let's say that you want to add that to it, to the language of the minutes, you can. You can say that there was a discussion on an over $1 million bid package. That's allowed and it'll be added to the minutes. That's part of why we're doing this. So you want to add that to it? Okay.
So you would have to have a motion to amend the minutes, the motion and the approval, and then specify what, I mean, that's the process.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to amend the minutes to reflect in, let me give you the exact, where did I put the one part? Let's see.
It's on page 9.
Page 9. Motion C, to table security investments items. So I would like the minutes to reflect that the motion to table the security investments items was due to Brighton area schools not soliciting competitive bids on $1 million procurement that came before the board to approve.
So hold on, just so we're clear. So you're saying where it begins with Deputy Schuster provided information through the administration, will bring this back. You want to strike all of that? Because this is where we have to get,
I don't want to strike anything.
Okay.
Just add what I just referenced.
so what did you, so say that again, at the end of
The motion to table the security investments items under section
yeah?
C.
No, I'm here. I'm trying to figure out what specifically you're looking for.
What was the result of Brighton area schools administration not soliciting competitive bids on a $1 million procurement that came for the board for approval during the special meeting?
Okay, so we have that motion to amend to add that specific language. Is there a second? Yep. All right, seconded by Mr. Trombley. Any further discussion?
The only thing I would do is that, I think in fairness, is that because the school system has the bidding process for materials, is the really the part that didn't, it kind of went through a bidding process that wasn't bid though, was the labor operation for the install. And the people that brought it from the administrative side, IT or whatever it was, that brought it to us for bid. So the balance, and I think it also, it went through, I believe, the bond committee. So I don't know how you put it in, and it was, so it got missed a couple times, that labor part. So not saying that I support the bidding process, and we all talked about it, and I said, yeah, okay, get bids. Dr. Outlaw?
Just the follow-up that I sent through email is that the labor was included in the TIPS bid. So that was one of the question marks during that last meeting that we weren't 100% sure,
So
that we wanted to verify.
So the labor operation through the state
Was included in the TIP.
state purchasing program. Correct. Because TIP is a state purchasing program. Which
So
we
it's-
didn't know.
right.
We didn't understand that. Right.
I think what it boils down to is this. The TIPS program is a competitive bid program that we have access to and what was done. We may disagree whether we want to just rely on that as a competitive bid process or then also solicit our own independent bids. That's where I recall we landed.
Thank you,
where-
Roger.
Yes.
Spot on.
But to say that we didn't, to say that we did not solicit competitive bids procured before it came to the board, that's just not factually accurate.
So then if we're going to get nuanced on this.
But see, that's the whole
That's
point
okay.
about
You're an
getting
attorney.
nuance.
You're an attorney. It's okay. So add after,
So this is a new motion to amend.
I'll do that, but just so we don't have to go back and forth 5 times, you just add a reference to TIPS. So we did.
So the
not
result
seek-
of BS
We did not see competitive bids outside
Other
of
than
the
TIPS.
program. And then I believe it should be factually accurate, according to you and Dr. Outlaw. Yes? Would that then be factually accurate, Dr. Outlaw?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you want to say the Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I would have to disagree. I don't, because, and this is part of the reason why I'm ultimately going to vote no on this amendment, because you're assuming motivations for each of us. That's not why I voted to table. I voted to table because the folks that we had making the presentation to us could not answer all of the questions we had about the TIPS program and the things that were selected through that process. So that's why I voted to table it.
Okay.
Not because I didn't think the TIPS
Right.
program was an acceptable
And
competitive
that's why we
bid
have
process.
discussion. So how about this? Add Andy Storm to the front of the statement that I asked you to add, and then I'll amend it one more time.
But it says that our motion was to table it for this specific reason, which implies
So you can just
unanimity.
Get rid of the table and just, I want a reference to Andy Storm raising a concern that this district called a special meeting for me to approve a $1 million plus procurement that was not competitively bid
Outside of TIPS.
outside of the TIPS program.
Okay.
So if the TIPS program follows the state law, then.
Correct. So if the
Legal
district
counsel's
are
already said
comfortable,
that's fine.
and if the public is comfortable that as a district, we're spending $1 million, we're calling a special meeting to approve $1 million plus procurement, and the district hasn't solicited competitive bids on that $1 million plus, then it's up to the public to ultimately establish if that's okay.
Well, we-
I have a concern with it. I've expressed that concern, and all I'm asking is that my concern, out of respect for Ms. Reed and everyone else, it's noted. That's
Okay.
it.
So how about we say you want, so if that's the case, then to the draft minutes, we would say, board discussion and questions were raised on bid process, revising the scope, including trustee Storm's objections to the bidding process. All right. Okay, and so then that's your revised motion to amend?
Yeah, you want to read it one more time?
Sure, so it will, the language that's as drafted will stay the same, but it will say, in the second sentence, board discussion and questions were raised on bid processing and revising the scope, including trustee Storm's objections to the bidding process.
Can I add one more thing, Roger?
What do you want to add?
Over $1 million, that's of relevance to me, of importance, that there's a reference to over procurements over $1 million.
On procurements over $1 million. Okay. All right, so we have the motion to amend, so we're going to be voting on the motion to amend to add that language,
Yes.
okay?
You want me to say it one more time?
So, it'll say, board discussion and questions were raised on bid processing and revising the scope, including trustee Storm's objections to the bidding process on procurements over $1 million.
Spot on. Thank you.
Support.
Okay.
If you need a second one, you have Bill on the-
So, yeah, Bill, that's the revised motion to amend, okay?
Yep,
Any
thank
further discussion? And I will, I'm not going to support this because I think this sets a bad precedent of us, when, as to Ms. Reed's point, where we've already had, I mean, it's all public record, your objections, the concerns, and I think we'll be going down a slippery slope if we start having these debates over, that's why I'm just.
Everyone sitting at this table can vote, no problem.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so all those, all right, so we have a roll call vote, and this is just on the motion to amend to add Mr. Storm's language.
So Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Ms. Reed,
No?
Mr. Myers?
No.
Mr. Trombley?
Yes.
Dr. Krebs?
No.
Mr. Storm?
Yes.
Myself, no.
Okay, so the motion to amend failed. So now we're back to the original motion to approve the minutes as presented. Right? Okay, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 4-3. Okay. That moves us to the Human Resource Report, item C. Mr. Scaling.
Yes. Our updated human resource report is presented for your review. We have 3 individuals who are recommended for hire. First, Ryan Ford, recommended Ryan for hire for a social studies teaching position at Ryan High School. I hold a bachelor's degree from Williams Cliff with a major in business administration and a master's degree from Western Michigan, a career in technical education. Catherine Alfaro is recommended for our media specialist position at Brighton High School. Catherine holds a bachelor's degree from Michigan State with a major in English and minor in Spanish, also holds a master's degree in teaching from MSU, and has a graduate certificate in library media science from Wayne State University. Megan Wilson, Megan's been recommended for our kindergarten position at Fort Wayne Elementary. She holds a bachelor's degree from Central Michigan University Elementary Education and a master's degree from CMU in Reading Literacy. We recommend approval of the HR report as presented.
Okay. We have a motion.
Support. Motion, I guess.
Okay, motion by Dr. Krebs. Support by Mr. Conley. Any discussion?
Yes, I see that on the resignations, we have a couple of teachers, a Scranton teacher and a Maltby fifth grade teacher. Are those positions that are still open then?
The Scranton science teacher position, we should have a recommendation early tomorrow. And the Maltby Intermediate School was filled with a internal transition.
So the Scranton science teacher, will that be prepared then to teach the beginning of the year starts or? that?
Yes, the goal, obviously, the goal would be to have that approved. The board policy does allow for certain circumstances, for a teacher to start prior to approval, but once we have a recommendation that will coordinate with Dr. Ella how to make that happen, so that she can start first day of school.
Yeah, we'd hope to bring a human resource report on the 28th for an action item. I think it's the 28th. So at the work session, if that's okay with the board.
In the science area, what was the teacher's specialty that's resigning? Where was she at?
I'm sorry?
What area of science was she? 6, 7?
8th grade, 7th grade science, yeah, back to 4 years, yes.
So that's obviously, it was her schedule's booked, it's full.
Correct.
So
Yes.
You gotta either, you're gonna have to do it or you're not. But
Say that again.
somebody's gonna have to do it though.
Oh, yes, you're talking about the, yes, yeah, it'll be presented on the 28th, yes.
And we have some good applicants for that spot.
Very good, yep, very good. Following up
And we
on-
did look for people that had experience with STEAM education in other districts. So that was something that was looked for.
Do we do exit interviews when people leave the district?
Yes, I do. I reach out to our candidates, especially ones that happen to leave us during the offer them an exit interview. But our administrators do that when they're notified. And then if there's anything else that I need to be aware of, then I reach out to be interested in the next interview.
Are there standard questions?
I have 3 or 4, and then I have a few based on the individual situation, yes.
And is it possible for us to receive copies of the exit interviews from any of the teachers who are leaving the district, whether they're retiring or resigning voluntarily? Just to see and understand,
Yeah.
feedback that they provide?
We can document that, yes. I don't know that I take my notes and I look for issues to look into. But as far as documenting individual specific responses to those questions when I have those interviews, I don't know that I keep a formal document of that.
So you conduct exit interviews, but you don't
Just my own
actually
personal notes.
document the
Yes, I
feedback
have
from
my
the.
personal notes and things, so.
But I mean, there's a district form. If I interpreted you correctly, there's a district form for exit interviews, a
It's
standard
a form
form.
that I used, that I just had designed to do when I hold these exit interviews. There's not a formal district process that was in place, so I put that in place to meet with some of the teachers that were leaving during the school year to better understand decisions for them leaving.
So there's not a district form, a standard district form.
Just my own, correct. There wasn't a formal process in place prior to my getting here, so I have taken it on and done that process.
It would just be, I think, maybe an opportunity for improvement for our district is to actually follow a structured exit interview process for all district employees and capture the feedback and share it, with the principal, with administration, with the board, with the community. There's a lot of really, really good information and feedback that people provide when they exit an employer voluntarily and through retirement. And I think there's a lot that we could learn from that if we're willing to capture the feedback and then share it and act on it. Have you experienced any exit interview processes before, Dr. Alla?
So
seen this
I've
in
never
practice?
had forms that were shared with the board and the public, but doing exit conversations is typical. And when I was a principal, if somebody left, I've never had anybody leave for any reason other than retirement or a promotion. But exit conversations is pretty typical. In this case, you have somebody that became the varsity football coach at Northville High School, and they offered him a job. It's a great fit. Jessica got her first administrative job. Congratulations, Jessica. She is going to be an administrator in Heartland, the dean of students. So that's a great move for her. Mike Ingleter, obviously has departed for another district. And then Meredith Wolf is moved to a district where she lives. And it was, family. So those were some of the motivations that were
Yeah, I
there.
guess it's not,
And-
the intent isn't a
Yeah.
criticism. It's
No,
not like, this
yeah,
isn't something
absolutely.
like we're trying to find something bad. It's the individuals give you feedback on, this is what I really liked about being an employee at Brighton Area Schools. You ask what, if there's one thing we could do to improve, they give, you get feedback on things we can do to improve. Like, it's a great mechanism to get good feedback that's unbiased because people are no longer employed by our district.
As Dr. Alla referenced, we have these conversations, we just don't have a formal process of documents so that we can share it with the board. But we do have this information about.
And maybe set the board aside. I know I mentioned that, but like, it would be great for the administration, for principals, for stakeholders in our district to get that feedback. I mean, I would hope that they would welcome it, want it.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion to approve the human resource report as presented signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. That moves us to item D, the snowplow contract. Do you want to handle this, Mr. Trombley?
Sure. So again, it's up for renewal. I think it's a 3-year contract. It's come through the bond committee, and we've asked Scott to go back and look at it a couple different ways, which he's done, and you'll see the results. And Scott, what, just back reference, Cut and Care, is that who we're recommending? What's that? Yep. Yep. And that's who appears to be the low bidder. And again, came to the bond committee. We had him go back, do a couple other things and get some different pricing, and he fulfilled that, and we're recommending Cut and Care, the contract, the award.
All right, so do we have a motion? And just to clarify, I believe the recommendation is, and through the bond committee, is in this, as you'll see in this bid sheet with the various bidders, there's a district-wide snow plowing, and then there's also a sidewalks portion. So for Cut and Care, it was 157, and the sidewalks was a separate item for 198, 696. I believe the recommendation is only for the snow plowing, not the sidewalk. Then we're not going to be, there's not a recommendation to hire any of these people to do
We do them in-house.
We do them
That would
internally.
be done in-house.
Okay, so that's the recommendation. So do we have a motion to approve Cut and Care as for a 3-year contract per the bid for the district-wide snow plowing only? Moved by Mr. Trombley, supported by Ms. Reed. Any discussion?
Is this a 2-year contract?
3-year.
3-year. So pricing held for an additional
Yep.
2 years, so is it
So it's 3-year total.
3 years?
Yep,
Got it.
same price.
Additional 2, got it.
Open fuel doesn't go, right?
All right, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. Next item is item E, the Spencer Mobile Bookshelf quote. Mr. Trombley?
But can we just roll E and F in together possibly? And the only reason why I'm saying that is this is all in regards to bond, continuing to move forward with bid pack 5 contingency dollars and some other contingency dollars. So E is in Spencer. Spencer didn't have any walls between the classrooms. They were open classrooms. The teachers had put back-to-back shelving units to create walls, which again, we know aren't the best walls, bookshelves actually. And so what we've done, and you'll see in F, as well, where we've gone and now we are proposing to build walls in there, then put shelves back on each side of the wall, not the shelves that we're using for the center walls now. And that's what E is for those shelves. And then if you get into F, the change orders, again, you'll see multi-athletic field, the refurbishment, that's out in the back areas. The science classroom demos are at the high school. Spencer classroom walls are what we just discussed. Then Horning is a folding partition between the gym and the cafeteria so the gym teacher can teach while the other side is having lunch. And if you haven't been in there to see this, believe me, I don't know how she does it now. So, and the total amount to this is somewhere around $514,000. And again, part of the contingency out of bid pack 5, some's out of the other contingency dollars, which would give us a remaining somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.3 million still left in contingency funds to move forward with the remaining portion of the bond. So if we want to, what do you call, we put the two together to vote on it?
Yeah, we could just.
Combine
Motion
E and F.
for E and F.
Yeah.
So do we have,
So, yeah, I'll make a motion to combine E and F as a total.
Support.
all right, motion by Mr. Trombley, supported by Ms. Reed. Any discussion?
I have a question about the science
Mhm.
demo,
Mhm.
just timing of that. If, assuming this is approved and it moves forward, what's the estimate for when that would probably be?
The room completed?
Yeah,
So the first portion, what this is, the demolition of one science room. So we can make a model room for the other, and what this is to demo the shelves, to cap the gas lines, cap the electrical lines, put in a fire rated wall back towards back, as well as a fire rated door to the hallway. And then that's a demo. The next, and that's what is this dollars are for
Okay.
in here, strictly for that demolition as well as the ceiling.
okay.
Moving forward, the plan is to have Tracy Taylor or T2 start acquiring furniture. And again, Dr. Outlaw's pulled together the science, I guess, teachers, right, as to get some ideas. And so we're going to start, we'll demo this room, then we'll go back and start putting furniture and some different things so the teachers can come in, look, see how they like it, what they want to do. This is going to kind of be like the laboratory room to start with.
And this
That
would
would be the
be occurring over the school year in theory, right? With
The
completion
demo
at
should
some point
begin
during
here
the
this
year?
fall, yes. Demo will begin this
The
fall.
classroom in question is not one that is
It's
in
being
use.
used. yeah.
Right, so that
CE,
it can be,
We're not
okay.
disrupting
That was
CE.
going to be my
class
other, so it's
schedules.
not in the middle.
Empty room.
And the idea behind this is that these would be science rooms eventually, once we get it to where you would want to adopt this and replicate it, right, at the high school and hopefully Scranton, that these would be used for core science classes, correct? Like biology and
Science,
chemistry.
physics,
And so, okay, and my next question is, are we working on improvements to the curriculum simultaneously so that we can like optimize the new space, right, when it's ready? If somebody could just answer that to ensure that when it's ready to go, we can roll with it right away.
Well, I've had conversations, but Dr. Outlaw has as well. So biology was actually up not that long ago for review prior, like right when I got here, so prior to that. But they are looking at improvements and ways to maybe enhance some of our resources that we might use in the science classroom. So the idea of labs and bringing back some more
Okay.
project-based type pieces. So I wouldn't say curricular-wise, but maybe more instructional-wise, maybe.
Sure, and,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
right, interchange
Sorry.
those words a little bit. No, I
yeah.
appreciate the definition.
Yeah,
Just wanting to make sure that going through this process, we have all this great new functionality, ensuring that the students are getting to use it.
Yeah, and Mr. Trombley made mention to Dr. Outlaw meeting also with science teachers on Nick Castile, our technology, met with the science teacher, I think last week again, to kind of start going over some resources and stuff to help in
Great.
the instruction piece of that.
Thank you.
I will say, on the bond committee, one of the things that I am most excited about this project is that we are taking that classroom and we're going to try a lot of different things in there. It's really going to be a learning space for the teachers and the administration and the board, so we can figure out what it is
Excellent.
we want to do next, what things might work better in a physics classroom versus a biology classroom, so that when we have the vision for refurbishing the rest of the spaces, we've got some good practical knowledge about what's out there and what's going to work best for the long term.
That's great.
Really hoping that's where we sink the rest of our contingency dollars. Just in case you were wondering where this is going.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the motion for both E and F as presented, signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. And that concludes the for action portion of our agenda and moves us into the next portion for future action, true and annual policy updates. Mr. Scaling?
Sure, I can speak to that. We met as a policy committee today and reviewed the recommended changes from True with respect to policy updates. Most of those policy updates are grammatical or minor revisions and clarifications. Very few, except outside of the new policy that they're recommending, are mostly clarifications and cleanup to the policy that we adopted in November. We went through those today. Those documents will be ready for review and for future action in the September meeting, and then it will be in the October meeting for action.
Yep, just to add on that, I mean, we did go policy by policy through them. I think it's going to be an easy review for the board when it comes to the board table, but we didn't want to rush it since the policy committee only looked through them and made recommendations on what should come here and what shouldn't just today. That's why you don't have it in your board packet. So you're going to get a full for action for future action in September, followed by for action in October. So plenty of time to check through and make sure that we're all comfortable with it.
Good. All right, thank you. That concludes the for future action, moves us into the next item on the agenda, board reports. Do you have any further reports? Mr. Conley?
If I can just, I will say a couple of things from the policy committee standpoint. We've got some additional information for the executive committee on some that we previously recommended to be added to the board workshop. So we would appreciate the executive committee taking another look at those items so that we can have some further discussion at the board table in line with things that we've recommended from the policy committee. And we will meet again on September 8th.
All right, thank you. Mr. Conley?
Yeah, thank you. I received an email today from one of our employee groups, and it had talked about, and the request was that Mr. Scaling was doing a report for the board regarding EA pay history compared to other employees performing similar duties and funding sources limitations. Now, I don't know, Mr. Scaling, where we wound up on that. Do you recall that request?
Yeah, I will have a report for the board. Mr. Scaling put one together and worked with finance department, so there'll be a full report coming to the board on that topic.
Okay.
I met with Dr. Mosier today. We looked it over to add any instructional items to it as well. So that'll be
it's
coming to the board.
Okay, good. Thank you. And then, and one other thing, this parental opt-out form, pass these around. I'd like to have our district review this and see if this applies to us as it's represented to me. And I'd like this to be mailed to all the parents of the district, providing we pass that down. Providing we cut that out, the MCLs that are on it and everything else. It appears to be 100% current. But I'd like to see if we could agree that that could be sent to parents, again, providing it gets looked at and was approved by administration, and that recommendation would be allowed, I guess, and then the board could decide.
Well, where is this form from, Mr. Conley? What,
It was given to me.
what's that?
It was given to me. From a parent.
But from a lawyer?
From a parent. No, from a parent.
This is only board reports, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
So I'm reporting.
all right. Okay. That concludes the board reports portion of our agenda and concludes all items on our agenda for this evening. Our next regular board meeting, which will be a workshop, is on Monday, August 28th at 7 PM. And that concludes our meeting. Have a good evening.